Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're really getting into something special, exploring the world of speech and language in a unique way. We're focusing on Mark Ittleman's The Teaching of Talking method. Our mission for you is to really unpack the thinking behind it, the practical tools, and that deeply human approach it takes. It's all about helping people get back or even develop their ability to speak. And this isn't just like standard clinical stuff. Think of it as a shortcut to getting really well informed about this, specialized field that's actually incredibly relatable. It's packed with some surprising facts and insights you might not expect. Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start at the beginning. Every method like this has an origin story, right? And Mark A. Littleman's journey is, pretty compelling. He started as a speech-language pathologist back in 1972. And what's really interesting is that almost right away, he felt kind of bewildered. He had all this training, the theory, but when he actually met people who couldn't talk, those principles, they often just didn't seem to work. What was happening there?
Yeah, that's actually pretty common, that gap between the textbook and real life. Ittleman talks about feeling really frustrated, knowing someone's relying on you, but feeling like you don't quite have the right tools, or thinking you do and finding out they're not enough. So he took that feeling and really ran with it. He spent years just digging in, studying, going to seminars, reading absolutely everything he could find. He was driven to understand what he later called the true fundamentals of success. He wasn't just looking for techniques. He wanted the why. Why did certain things work when others didn't?
That kind of deep dive must have led him down some interesting paths. What was maybe the biggest insight, the thing that really flipped the script on how therapy was usually done?
It was this really fundamental idea, almost counterintuitive back then. He figured out that the most effective therapists, they weren't always the ones in the clinic. The real key, he found, was empowering the family members, the caregivers, the people who are there day in, day out in the person's own environment, training them to do what the therapists do, basically bringing the therapy into the home.
Wow. So not just visiting the clinic once a week.
Exactly. It decentralized everything. So his students weren't just the person with the speech difficulty, but their whole support network too. And his reason for wanting to share all this, it really came from that initial struggle, He didn't want other therapists to spend, and he puts it like 5, 10, 20, 30, or 40 years of practice to finally get it right.
Sharing the shortcut he found.
Precisely. It's like, here's what took me decades. Maybe it can help you get there faster. It's quite generous, really. And this all points to his core belief. He says, no machine or computer is capable of assessing the many approaches that may be necessary. Chun-Li. He really hammers home that the most important thing is a person willing to serve as a speech model, or SM. You need a human being who actually cares enough to keep searching, keep trying different things. That persistence, that connection, technology just can't do that.
So it sounds like it's much less about a specific set of drills and more about a whole philosophy, doesn't it? A really human-focused, persistent way of doing things that just says no to quick fixes like magic potions, pills, or devices. It's about people connecting with people.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that philosophy in mind, who exactly needs this? Who are the people that the teaching of talking is really designed for?
Well, he talks about two main groups. First, kids whose speech just didn't develop typically during those crucial early years. And second, adults who've lost their speech, maybe because of a neurological issue or some kind of trauma like a stroke or a brain injury. And the effect on their lives. It can be huge, really profound. People who struggle to communicate often become, shy, lonely, kind of cut off. Ittleman uses this phrase, the closet of life, where they just withdraw, stop answering the phone, avoid family gatherings. It's isolating.
That's heartbreaking.
It really is. And for kids, it's especially tough. They can face rejection, teasing, develop behavioral issues because they're so frustrated, and obviously it impacts their schoolwork hugely. Imagine trying to learn to read when you can barely make the sounds. It's incredibly difficult. And that's why the speech model, the SM, is just so critical. Think about it. How do babies learn to talk?
By hearing people talk around them constantly. Parents, caregivers.
Exactly. They're immersed in speech models. So to help someone improve their speech, the person with communication difficulty, the PCD, needs that same kind of input. They need to hear words from a, as Ittleman puts it, lively and interactive human model, and then practice repeating them. It's about recreating that natural learning process.
Right. So before you even get to the specific methods, what groundwork needs to be laid? What are those first crucial steps?
Well, first things first, you absolutely need a proper evaluation by a certified speech-language pathologist. That's non-negotiable. This method is mainly for people who are stimulable for speech therapy.
Stimulable, what does that mean exactly?
It means they can already produce some basic sounds, maybe vowels or simple one-syllable words, maybe put two words together. It shows there's something there to work with, a spark you can build on. And during that evaluation, the SLP looks at a few key things, but maybe not just in a textbook way. Ittleman emphasizes functional ability, like articulation. Not just can they make a P sound, but how well do they put sounds together into words? How clear are those mouth movements? Then there's speech intelligibility. That's often given as a percentage. Basically, how much of what they say can other people actually understand? That's really important.
More important than just isolated sounds.
Way more important in real life. They also check for dysarthria, which is like slurred speech caused by issues with the muscles involved in talking. And it goes beyond just making sounds. It's about language, too. Receptive language, can they understand what they hear or read? And expressive language, can they get their own thoughts out, either speaking or writing? So SLPs use a mix. They use standardized tests, sure, comparing the person to others, their age, but they also do crucial informal testing, just watching how the person communicates naturally in conversation. And they often take language samples, basically writing down everything the person says to analyze their grammar, sentence structure, how they put words together. It gives a much fuller picture.
What's really striking there is, even before you get to the how-to, it's all grounded in really understanding the person, right? And assessing them thoroughly, not just checking boxes. It's definitely not a cookie-cutter approach. Okay, so we've got the philosophy, the assessment. Now let's get practical. Once you're ready to actually start the therapy, what tools and techniques does a speech model use? Where does Ittleman say to begin?
He starts right at the foundation, the importance of vocabulary. Makes sense, right? Your weeds are, well, they're how you share who you are, your thoughts, your identity. Think about it. Native speakers have these huge, highly organized vocabularies, thousands and thousands of words.
How many are we talking?
Estimates vary a lot, but even conservative ones are like 14,000 to 20,000 words. Some studies go way higher, over 50,000. But what's maybe even more amazing is how fast we access them. Like 200 milliseconds, a tiny fraction of a second to pull up the word you need. It's incredible brain power we take for granted. He uses this great analogy. Imagine seeing your keys locked inside your car. You know they're there, you can see them, but you just can't get to them.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
That's what it can feel like for someone having trouble finding a word, that sort of a phasic moment. The word is there in their mind, but they can't speak it. So practically, what do? You create custom-made vocabulary lists. You can type them up, write them in a notebook, use an iPad. A really effective way, he suggests, is going room by room in the house, list the objects. Or even take photos and put them in files on an iPad, like a shower file, kitchen file, whatever.
So they have the words they need for their specific life.
Exactly. And these lists help them express themselves even when they're not right there in that room or situation. It makes their language portable.
That's so practical.
Yeah.
But it does raise a question. How do you keep this from becoming just boring drills? How do you make speech therapy engaging, something the person actually wants to do?
That's key. Ittleman nails it with this insight. Where there is interest, there is mental attention. Simple, but profound. If the person is genuinely interested in the topic, they will pay attention. Learning feels easier, more natural. He gives this example of a man who was a real foodie, loved food, cooking, all that. So his therapy wasn't just random word lists. It involved naming different kinds of beers, talking about recipes, discussing cooking techniques. And because the man was passionate about it, the conversation flowed. It was more spontaneous, more fun, and ultimately way more effective because it tapped into his own motivation. It wasn't instruction, it was interaction. And fundamentally, the whole method uses that basic question and answer format. Which is interesting because that's how people have taught and learned for centuries, right? It's a natural exchange. Then there's this really powerful concept called bombardment. Ittleman calls it the sixth Ittle principle.
Bombardment. Sounds intense.
It kind of is, but in a good way. It means surrounding the person with the target language through different senses. There are three types. Auditory bombardment, just hearing the words over and over. Visual bombardment, seeing the words written down or pictured. And motor bombardment, that's actually repeating the physical act of saying the words, using those speech muscles. By hitting all three channels, hearing, seeing, speaking, you're reinforcing the memory and the motor patterns. It makes it easier to recall the word and say it smoothly. So let's look at some specific methods that use these ideas. There's the what it is method. Sounds simple, but it's really clever. It's very direct, sort of telegraphic, slow, and intense. The speech model speaks at the exact level the PCD is currently at. So if they only use one or two words, the SM uses one or two words.
Let me give an example.
Sure. The SM might say, I'm well, are you well? And the PCD just needs to respond well. That's success. It removes complexity, builds confidence right away.
Got it. Make success achievable.
Exactly. Then there are embedded questions with tell me phrase. These are questions that basically hand the PCD the word they need on a platter, making it easy to repeat and reducing frustration. Like, tell me what you want, juice. There's also a focus on progressive sentence expansions. You build things up gradually. Start with single words, then move to things like I want, plus an object. Then maybe you verb requests, like you help. Then you build up sentences using ing verbs, like I am thinking or talking about others. Susie is coming over. Small steps, building complexity gently.
Building blocks.
Precisely. And finally, structured questioning, where you actually guide the PCD to ask their own questions like, who are they? Or what is it? That empowers them to take the lead sometimes. And, technology today really helps. It gives us amazing tools of the trade for tracking progress and doing the therapy itself. Laptops, video recorders, voice recorders, digital cameras, they're invaluable. They let you gather real, objective proof of improvement. You can measure speech rate, how loud someone is speaking, the average length of their sentences, how much their vocabulary has grown.
So it's not just subjective sounding better.
Right. You have data. It complements the test scores and gives everyone the PCD, the SM, concrete evidence of progress, which is hugely motivating. And underpinning all of this is massed practice. This is crucial. It means doing intensive speech stimulation often, throughout the day, every day, weaving it into normal daily activities. Full immersion. Ittleman argues this is far superior to just having, say, 1 or 2 therapy sessions a week.
Because that's how we learn language naturally, right?
Yeah.
Constant exposure.
Exactly. It's constantly reinforcing those neural pathways. It leads to faster, more significant, and more lasting change. Therapy becomes part of life, not just an appointment.
That makes so much sense, moving from isolated sessions to constant integration.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about specific problems people face. How does this method help with something like, say, mild expressive aphasia?
Right. So mild expressive aphasia can cause something called intermittent anomia. That's basically occasionally losing words, that incredibly frustrating tip of the tongue feeling, but maybe more often. It can lead to a lot of frustration, maybe withdrawal. Ittleman mentions a client, Gus, where stress made his speech much worse.
The pressure makes it harder.
Definitely. Gus would get stuck, get angry at himself, and the more he struggled, the worse the disruption got. So one key approach here is encouraging uninhibited communication. The idea is to help the person shift focus away from trying so hard to be perfect, away from monitoring themselves constantly. Just talk about interesting things, cool stuff, as Ittleman puts it. With Gus, when he started talking about his travels, something he loved, his speech actually became much more fluent, fewer errors.
Because he wasn't thinking about the problem.
Exactly. He forgot he had a problem, and so did the person listening. The language just flowed more naturally without all that anxiety weighing it down. And this connects directly to another powerful technique, the power of the pause. It's not just stopping, it's a strategic pause, a moment to collect your thoughts, relax a bit, and also, importantly, it signals to the listener that it's okay for them to jump in. Gus learned to say something like, hang on, I'll think of it in a minute, instead of just struggling and getting flustered.
Takes the pressure off immediately.
Right. It avoids that spiral of frustration. And often the word just comes back later when the pressure's off because, as Ittleman says, memory and language formulation just don't work well under duress. The pause is like a graceful escape hatch.
Connecting this back, it sounds like being a speech model isn't easy either. It demands a lot. What makes a really effective SM?
Oh, absolutely. It's a demanding role. A good SM helps the PCD learn strategies like speaking slower or using that pause, but they also have to be an exceptional model themselves. Their own speech needs to be clear, good voice quality, crisp articulation, the right volume, a good pace. Ittleman actually includes a self-check form for SMs to evaluate their own speaking habits. Are they providing the best possible model? Like a coach needing good technique themselves. And there's a really critical rule. Never make anyone wrong.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
If the PCD makes a mistake, says the wrong word, or mispronounces something, the SM's immediate reaction should be re-stimulate, re-stimulate, re-stimulate. Which means just provide the correct model again. Maybe say it slower. Maybe emphasize the tricky part. Take responsibility for making the message clear. It's not, nope, wrong. It's, okay, listen again, like this. It protects their confidence, keeps them willing to try. Another useful technique is recreating a conversation. If the SM isn't quite sure what the PCD meant.
Which must happen a lot.
It can, yeah. Instead of just nodding and pretending, the SM should try to clarify. They might summarize what they thought they heard, like, oh, I see you went to the store. Or ask the PCD to break it down. Can you tell me that again, one part at a time? It ensures real understanding and avoids that awkwardness of just guessing. Then there's the shadowing method. This is where the SM repeats what the PCD says, phrase by phrase or sentence by sentence, almost like an echo.
Why to do that?
It helps ensure that PCD is forming sentences correctly and that the SM is understanding accurately. It's especially useful if the PCD tends to rush or if their speech starts getting less clear. It kind of gently brings the focus back to conscious control over each word or sound, like hitting a reset button. And finally, something really foundational, the enrolling conversation. This is about mutual commitment. Both the PCD and the SM have to be fully bought in. The person with the difficulty needs that true desire to improve, what Ittleman calls a real junkyard dog mentality, just absolute persistence. He tells this story about a man, John, and his wife. The therapist had to subtly encourage the wife to commit fully to doing the stimulation consistently.
Because it takes two.
Exactly. The message was you can't row a person across the river without getting over to the other side yourself. Both have to be pulling equally hard day after day. If one isn't fully committed, it just won't work as well.
That's a powerful image. So with all this effort, this partnership, what's the end game? What does success truly look like with this method?
The ultimate goal, it's independent language, spontaneous conversation, just talking. It's about getting to a place where the river of conversation just flows naturally without the SM constantly having to prompt or correct. Ittleman compares it to finally letting go of a kid learning to ride a bike, and they just pedal off on their own. They find their own balance, their own rhythm.
That sounds amazing.
It is. He calls the point where the difficulty seems to vanish, where everyone's just lost in the flow of talking, the communication sphere of consciousness. You're just dancing in the conversation.
Cool.
And at that point, the advice is, let it happen. Embrace that independence. Don't jump in to correct every little thing. Let them fly. And it all comes back to that core idea. Engage people who struggle to speak. Don't let them fade into that closet of life. Think about someone like Helen Keller. Her incredible drive to communicate, her persistence, combined with Anne Sullivan's dedication, it transformed everything. It really shows what's possible with that human connection, that persistence, and, well, a method that understands the journey.
Wow. We've really covered a lot of ground here, digging into Mark Ittleman's The Teaching of Talking. What really stands out, I think, is how deeply human it is. The customized techniques, yes, but also that emphasis on persistence, on real connection. It feels like it's not just about fixing speech, but about reconnecting someone to their world, to other people.
Absolutely. And what's so clear is just how vital communication is for us as humans. It's fundamental. Conversation is how we figure out who we are, how we relate to others, how we find common ground, how we understand differences. Ittleman puts it so well. Imagine what life would be like if we could not communicate verbally. We could not share very much, and the result would be isolation.
It really puts it in perspective, doesn't it? So as you're thinking about all this, here's a final thought for you to mull over. How could applying some of these principles, like being a really exceptional communication model yourself, or truly trying to understand someone else's perspective, their model of the world, or even just using that power of the pause strategically, how could that change challenging conversations in your life? Not just in therapy, but maybe with family, friends, coworkers. And let's end with this powerful quote from Ittleman's work, something that clearly guides him. To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. Something to think about. How might we use some of this understanding to help someone else breathe a little easier?